The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited. That's right, brothers and sisters, the Hebrew and Bible Academy. You are invited. I'm here, Elder Ricard this week for our Patreon update. That's right. We're here for the Patreon update. Blessings to my brothers and sisters throughout the four corners of the earth. Shabbat. Well, we're going into the Shabbat. There's a Shabbat over there in overseas. If you're on the other side of the pond, you're already in it. And for those who are on the other side of the pond, Shabbat Shalom. May the Most High bless your Sabbath. Shalom. We're here with a quick Patreon update. And, of course, there will be Q&As, questions and answers within this particular Patreon update. So if there's any questions that you've always wanted to ask concerning doctrine or whatever the case is, now is your opportunity on Patreon to come on in and let's talk. Let's talk. What is the greatest threat facing us right now? Hold on 1 second. 1 second. What is the greatest threat facing us right now, brothers and sisters? If you can, put that in the chat. What do you think is the greatest threat facing our people in the earth right now? Whatever comes to your head, just put it in the chat real quick. What is the current threat on our people right now? They have us looking one way while they're doing other things. They would have us believe that, I'm hearing this online, that with Donald Trump, he's the greatest threat to democracy and all these others. Man, Humble Keeper says the healthcare system. Interesting. You said that. Someone says the greatest threat to us today is anti-Semitism. Well, if they would acknowledge that we're the children of Israel, then I would agree with that, being a Shemite. Someone says hospitals and foods, controlling our health, the unhealthy things that are they're placing in food, confusion, which is another, jail, deception, the conditioning of our children. That's deep in of itself. Delusion is another thing. I've seen some sisters online, in particular, celebrating the charges on Trump. And not that, I'm for Trump or anything like that. But I was perplexed. I was thinking, why is she celebrating? Is there something I'm missing? Right? Is there something I'm missing? When I'm asking what was she celebrating, obviously she think that what's in the office right now that have destroyed our people for decades is better for our people. Okay, and if so, I need someone to chime in and let me know what's going on. Tell me how these people have always incarcerated, separated our families, destroyed any morality within our communities under a liberal, progressive agenda, how any of that have ever benefited our people. And if so, I need to hear about that. Someone need to talk. You need to chime in and give me some insight on that. And I'm not all caught up in the theater of it, right? Because I more so view the reaction from our people or from people who have nothing to do with politics. What are their reactions? How are they viewing this? And I'm perplexed. On either side, as far as I'm concerned, what's going on with Trump is strictly theater. Dividing either side, leading into a civil cataclysm. It's all theater. Last election, they leaned more towards the black side to incinerate them against the white side. This time, they can't pull that off no more because we don't care about their race baiting, and we realize that they tricked us into 4 years of total destruction on our communities. So they say, well, okay, we'll just press the other side. We'll get some Trump charges going on. And now the white people are all incensed, ready up in arms to defend democracy with these bogus charges. So either side, they don't care which side get incinerated, as long as it feeds the cataclysm in between the two. And we're just watching prophecy unfold. I'm not caught up on either side. I was just perplexed to why our people were celebrating that. Right? So I understand what it is. It's theater. They can't trick us into this Trump racist garbage no more that had us go out and vote for absolutely nothing. 4 years of total destroying our people in the communities. So they can't press on us no more because we understand now, most of us understand, I hope, that liberal progressive agendas is anti-God, anti-Christ, and this is why we can't come together as a people in our communities. We have all these Satanists all up into the sauce, right? All up in the sauce, right? Yeah, ammo went up, exactly. But I don't want to stay too long on that. Let me make a few announcements before segueing over into Patreon. It's been a while since I want to sit down and talk to my Patreon people today. We're going to go an hour or so. We're going to talk here. And before I go into that, let me just give a formal announcement on what to look for this coming weekend. Not this weekend, but the weekend after next. The weekend of the 7th and the 8th of June. Hold on. What's going on here? That's some good food there. Let me get that out of the way. Yeah, I guess that was a recipe I was looking at. But anyway, GOCC Royalty Summit, June 7th and 8th. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And we're only a few days away from the first royal event of the Gathering of Christ Church, the White Gala. It's going to be absolutely amazing. The first GOCC Royalty Summit next week over in what? Over in Augusta, Georgia. Okay? It's not for profit, so that's right. I get paid absolutely zero to put this on. It's more so for the people and an outreach to help others on the outside of this, okay? Who probably are inquisitive now concerning what's going on and are now willing to sit down and talk before Jacob's trouble comes to an apex, come to a head. But, you know, we're going to come together. We're going to have a great time, information filled, advancing the mission. The GOCC Royalty Summit is a transformative event that will unite the community in a powerful way, fostering new relationships with the Most High and empowering our people, those who believe, okay? Empowering our people to reach their full potential. This is a summit also aims to bring new souls to the kingdom of Christ, creating a network of individuals dedicated to spreading love, faith, and positivity in the world. There's enough negativity already. Okay? Join us as we come together to celebrate our shared beliefs in Christ and embark on a journey of spiritual growth and enlightenment. Okay? So I hope to see you there next week. You can go here. Go to GOCCRoyaltySummit.com. We are now allowing those who are not baptized to get seats. You can actually pick your seat and everything right here on the website. One-stop shopping. Okay? We'll have all-day vending Friday before the sun go down. Okay, all-day vending for vendors. If you're a vendor and want to show your products, here's an opportunity to do so. We'll have a health expo. Okay, I'm going to be speaking of whatever the case is, health, family, and finance. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to have some serious experts there. We'll have Dr. J.C. Goodman, a nutritionalist. We're going to have Raphael Bush, a retired NFL professional athlete. He's going to give us some insight on fitness, performance, and all that, keeping healthy. Okay. Retired football player. He's going to be there. Marsha J. Richards, a radio show host, health advocate, and CEO of Us Linens. Yeah, we're going to have some good folk here, some people with serious knowledge. Michael and Akita Grant, and owners of Humble Servants Homestead. How to plant and make your own food, how to plant and take care of your own food. We're going to have it there. We're going to talk about it. And Jermaine Pitts. He's a brother in the church, great brother. He's also an Internal Revenue Service agent, okay, to give us some insight on how to deal with things financially so not to get picked on. And sometimes you don't realize, a lot of people don't understand that even though we're at the bottom of the wealth chain in America, black people in particular, the tribe of Judah, we're audited 4 more times than any other ethnicity in the United States. So you would think the people with the most money would get audited the most. Well, no. It's the poor people. Black people get audited 4 times more than any other demographic, any other ethnicity. So we got to talk about this, right? How to forego these traps they try to put us into, how to understand how to operate righteously in the name of God, protect ourselves while doing so, right? But still be able to do what? Scale ourselves financially so that we can take resources and turn them into assets that can help us through Jacob's trouble. That and more will be discussed next week. There'll be a Sabbath lesson Saturday. Friday night, we're going to come back 7 p.m. 7 p.m. We're going to come back for 7 p.m. Friday. There will be a play on Samson and Delilah. The play of Samson and Delilah Friday night. Saturday, we'll have a class between 11 and 2. Go back home, come back around 5 where the white carpet will be rolled out for saints. It's going to be a serious gala. The food will be great. The music will be there. The entertainment. That's right. Like one big righteous cookout. Hope to see you there. Go to GOCCRoyaltySummit.com. This coming Sunday in the Academy, our lesson, first time taught in the Academy, Surviving Jacob's Trouble. What did the righteous do in old times to make it through crisis? A lot of tips we'll be able to take from that particular lesson that can get us through all the evil that will soon, I would say, surround the children of Israel throughout the earth, okay? Now, getting back to the premise of what we're talking about, before I segue over, the curses on nurses, I'm going to talk about that on Patreon and more. I'm going to answer regular questions outside the topic if you would like. You know, we're going to just open up the Zoom, open up the phone calls, and let's have a conversation. Going back to the original premise, what are some of the most harmful things we're facing as a people? Folks, I'm going to say what I can say right now with all these guidelines out here with YouTube and all these others. 2018, right? 2018, there's this East Indian businessman that I know, right? East Indian. And how I know him is because in the midst of us looking into doing things as far as land for food or whatever the case is, he was one of the go-to people that I would talk to concerning real estate and other things. Now, without putting his name out there and all that, he has other East Indian partners that he's partnered with. And for some reason, he's been given information on what the next big investments are to go into as society progressed from one administration or every 4 years to the next 4 years. So I don't know whether or not he had any political plug-ins, where to put his money, whatever the case is, but I was all ears. He know that we are a church. He know we preach the gospel. Obviously, he's a Hindu. But in 2018, he sat down with me and he says the biggest projects in the United States where people should put their money, 2018. He stated, right now we are pivoting more so into inpatient health care centers. Now, folks, this was before the pandemic. I had no idea why. I'm like, inpatient health centers. He says, yeah. He says, that's where all the money is. He says, either if you're nonprofit, whatever the case is, or if you're for profit, the majority of us is putting our money over there. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Now, in my mind, I was thinking that there would be no need for these new health facilities if they didn't foresee a number of people needing care. Those who cannot be taken care of in the general population with their family would need care ramped up on another level. So they started building all these facilities and or investing in these facilities well before the pandemic. Interesting, isn't it? So it's as if instead of old folks' homes, they're the same type of facilities, but for those, generally of, in their vibrant primes, they'll still need, prime of life, they'll still need health care. Like old folks' homes for young people. Now I realize what he was talking about, why he said, right now, if you're going to put some money in, put some money into these facilities. Okay? And I notice family members and others are frequenting these facilities right out of the hospital. Rehabilitation and all these other things, exactly like he said it would happen. But how did he know that there would be a need for these particular facilities for the general population in 2018? And then I couldn't help but notice when I did go into one of these centers that the majority of the nurses and others that are in all of these facilities, folks, are being ran by black women. And I couldn't help but understand that not just black women, the majority of the black women in position are foreigners. They're either from Guyana, the West Indies, but usually, believe it or not, the people who's running the facility, when you look at who's running everyone, it was a white man. I just thought I would put that out there. Fair use. We were told this in 2010. It's 2024. Bill Gates had an interview. Bill Gates had an interview in 2010. Fair use. Now, this was before the Health Care Act, which they call the Obamacare, which when you do the research, there was plans for that particular type of care well before there was any such man as Barack Obama. I'll stand on this, that Barack Obama, more so for our people, was a Trojan horse. To have us accept something that we would normally reject. Only because it came out of the mouth of a black person. But when you go back to 2010, 14 years ago, it's all starting to fall in place. Fair use.
Forward TV, the world is thinking.
For educational purposes only.
The proportion of GDP that goes to health care, is that over-allocated?
Well, the U.S. spends 17% of GDP on health care, and you drop down to number 2, which is Switzerland at 12%. And so you say, well, hey, what do we get for that? Well, we get nothing. The health outcomes, which are complicated to compare, but the health outcomes are basically slightly worse, both in terms of averages and the inequity. Our bottom quartile is very ugly compared to all other rich countries' bottom quartile. Our upper quartile is somewhat better, but that's how you get the inequity. So we're spending at a huge rate, which if it wasn't increasing faster than inflation, it's increasing as a percentage of the economy, then okay, you can probably afford it. But as it continues to grow, it squeezes, unless people say, yes, I would like to be taxed a lot more. And most states have these super...
Fair use. Listen to this, brothers and sisters. Listen to this clearly. And see, and this is why a lot of our brothers and sisters, they'll say, well, we're dealing with the Bible. Why are we looking into what some of these so-called professionals state politically? Well, you cannot understand prophecy altogether if you don't know what's going on politically. And there's no one that's in the Bible who believe in the Bible. If you are not focusing on health care, you don't know the Bible at all. Because certain systems were always used to target the children of God. Now, I'm going to quantify this today on Patreon. Fair use. This was 2010.
Supermajorities that are required to do that, and it's not likely, and it's not clearly a good thing either. But as long as you're dealing with a finite amount, as the medical cost goes up, and that shows up both in state budgets as so-called state Medicaid spending, and it shows up in the federal budget as...
Now, let me make this clear also. For black people, for my people, there was never a time where being able to afford health care, there was never a time where that was a problem in our community. Ever. When you can do the research on eugenics, you'll understand why they'll give us health care absolutely free. Because what? It benefits what they're trying to progressively bring forth, for the future. It benefits them to give us free health care. When you look up eugenics, you'll understand why. See? So there's pros and cons in everything. And this is not to say that there aren't some good people who are honestly seeking to help people within these fields. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about, if you look at the root of some of these systems, you'll realize why they would always give us free health care as poor people. So we never had no issues. So all this stuff about being able to afford this drug or that drug and all that, that never been our issue. Because they need the healthcare system in place in order to do what they are progressively bringing forth in the earth. Okay? So don't go for the Jedi mind trick when they claim, well, we're going to make drugs cheaper and all this others. Let me tell you, they'll always give free health care to poor people. Not only is it in the budget to do so, but it works for other purposes. Let me put it that way.
As Medicare, and they're part of Medicaid, it squeezes out everything else. So right now what you see is it's squeezing higher education. You're raising tuitions at the University of California as rapidly as they can. And so the access that used to be...
Exactly. Someone put it out there. L'Oreal. Healthcare gives them information. It gives them access. See? So they need these centers because these centers gives them access to us, our bodies.
Be available to the middle class or whatever is just rapidly going away. That's a trade-off society is making because of very, very high medical costs and a lack of willingness to say, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of...
Now check this out, folks. Now, this is how you know some of what they're putting out there is kind of bogus. How can you claim you can't afford health care when you let millions of people in the country and giving them free health care? Illegals. So that's how you know, you can't believe how they're framing these things. If you can't afford to give health care to the people who are citizens, how can you now give all this free health care to non-citizens? So that's why you can't. But guess what? It was enough to convince us to believe what they were saying 14 years ago. But check out his answer to the problem.
Is just rapidly going away. That's a trade-off society is making because of very, very high medical costs and a lack of willingness to say, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better not to lay off those 10 teachers and to make that?
Would it be better to not lay off the 10 teachers who are really indoctrinators? Would it be easier not to lay off 10 teachers and give someone a more comfortable position, transitioning them into the afterlife 3 months earlier? So sometimes we got to weigh this. Should we allow this person to live longer and then have to lay off teachers? Or can we meet somewhere in the middle and help the person who's at the end of their life transition earlier?
Would it be better not to lay off those 10 teachers and to make that trade-off in medical costs? But that's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion.
But that's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion. Well, suppose you make life, the quality of life, so bad that the majority of people, after getting sick and all these others, would choose to volunteer space for the healthy on earth. Folks, if you don't believe me, that's what's going down right now. And I'm going to talk about that on the other side. I'm going to also talk about the origin of what we call nurses. America will always have nurses. When you don't have a job, you can always become a nurse. It doesn't matter what's going on in the earth, America will always have nurses. Why? Well, I got this PDF that I'm going to go over a little bit in lessons to come, called Witches, Midwives, and Nurses. The history of women healers. Well, folks, it talks about, when you go into this, it talks about the origin of the original nurses. And what they were used for. Witches, midwives, and nurses. And the reason why Europe would have witches as nurses is because women are more trusting than in comparison to the opposite sex, and they're nurturers. And from the most part, more trusting of the two. You'll trust a woman before a man under most circumstances because they are less threatening, at least on the surface. So this is why King James, his family, his aunt, King James' aunt, and even King James had what you would call a witch hunt to get rid of some of what was going on, because they were coming in like Trojan horses working for the Vatican. The history of nurses is deep in of itself. And I know there's a lot of good nurses out there. I know them. Have great intentions. But when I think about the health care from a biblical standpoint, and I believe our brothers and sisters are going to really have to begin to focus on, especially hearing clips like I've just played, focus on how can I parallel this. Hold on. 1 second. How can I now parallel this with ancient times to understand how to protect my family, knowing that they are investing in healthcare and all these others, and that our people are getting sick, right? How do I quantify this according to the Bible? Folks, check this out. I'm going to pull this up real quick. I'm going to pull this up in Genesis. Matter of fact, let's go to Exodus real quick. Exodus. Right? When you go into the book of Exodus, it's talking about when our people, the children of Israel, our forefathers, walked into Egypt. And Pharaoh said, now these arose a new king over Egypt. And that king wasn't Ramesses either. That's another lie out there. Intentional lie. It wasn't Ramesses. Okay. Now these arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come and let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them out of the land. So this is a government strategy against our people. Now, of course, they told us a bold-faced lie about a project that they needed us to oversee someplace else, while the elite amongst Egypt would conspire to actually destroy us, because we were the legislators in Upper Egypt during the time of Joseph. The 11th verse says, therefore did they set them taskmasters to afflict them. So I like to parallel this government history with what's going on in modern day Egypt. How under Barack Obama, they put taskmasters over us. Anti-God taskmasters, anti-Christ taskmasters. And how did they do it? Well, they gave the purse strings or the budgets to these particular controllers as minorities in our community so that they'll control all the social programs. Right? So if we don't do what they want us to do, then they'll begin to cut our people off in the inner cities. Same thing. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. Now, another thing about this Pharaoh is that when our people began to become resistant, he said, what? I'll tell you what. They'll make bricks without straw. Same thing today. They're bringing in migrants and all that and take all the jobs and say, listen, now there'll be nothing but dirt poor jobs left without any financial upward mobility to progress beyond what? A regular retail or a restaurant job. And I don't care about your degree. You're going to work and love it, and you will work for less. That's synonymous to when Pharaoh took straw from us and said, make brick without straw. See? Now check this out. The more they afflicted our people, the more we multiplied and grew. And this is what they didn't like. They didn't like the fact that usually when you are oppressed and cannot afford to have children as a family, usually you populate less. They thought the more oppression going on amongst our people, the systematic governmental oppression, the less kids they would have to worry about in the future. But guess what? The children of Israel just kept growing. And that's something that's a serious problem for this world right now, that we're multiplying, especially in a time where they're trying to peddle out this idea that there's too many people on earth. Is the depopulation that they're talking about, is it predominantly aimed that particular agenda of the world? Is that really against the children of Israel, but yet our people have no idea? And this is why I parallel these stories because this was a government plan in Egypt to stop the population of God's people. Check this out. So they went straight to the midwives of our people. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives. These would be your modern day nurses, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools. See, we had a stool there, and the woman would stand up to use gravity to push the baby down. Use her muscles and her pelvic area, and she would push down under a stool. The baby would come down. But now they try to have women, what? Have the baby on their back, giving them more pain, and then eventually they'll give the option of surgery. Why? Because gravity isn't taking hold when a woman is supposed to be like this, standing up. So that gravity can just move the baby. The baby will find its way down quicker through gravity. And hospitals know that. They'll have you lay on your back with all that pain so they can administer stuff and all this other stuff. So you can pay for the drugs and pay for all this other stuff. But I digress. But here's the key point here. When you do the office of a midwife of the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. Now, this was a government plan against the population of Israelites living under the Egyptian government. So we have to really quantify what's going on in the earth, regardless of what they're telling us, and see if there's any parallel. And if so, what can we do to protect ourselves from these particular agendas to get rid of God's people in the midst of Jacob's trouble? And folks, they've tried to do this many times, even against Christ. They wanted to get rid of him. Even before in Egypt, it was Nimrod who wanted to get rid of Abraham at birth. On and on and on and on again. So this is what I want to talk about. What is the greatest threat up against our people? Could it be in areas we normally learn to trust? That's just a question. That's just a question. So we're going to talk about that and more on the other side. Because why? There's curses on nurses, and I believe there's curses on nurses because they go in to do the right thing and want to do the right thing. But then they realize what they have applied for is an entirely different setup, something that won't allow them to actually do the care that they initially signed up for. And it can become depressing when you look to do certain things and the bureaucracy and all of that, the politics and all of this. You say, well, hold up. I thought this was a place where it's just about people come in sick, we heal them. Only to find that you get a rude awakening. And see, it's a sad case when someone is at the end of their life, and you have to be the one that walks in and to administer what will make them comfortable, segue them to the other side. Therefore, the whole facility is absolved. And really, the sin, or if someone passes, or whatever the case is, it usually falls on the administrator. And this is how others absolve themselves. Because they like, listen, we're not doing nothing to y'all people. And guess what? And there's even some scriptures in the Talmud that says, well, listen, the Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill." But if there's an instance where I tie you up and you're sitting there tied up and you end up starving on your own volition, well, I didn't kill you. You was alive when I left. Well, so "thou shalt not murder" doesn't apply there because I didn't actually kill you. You died of starvation. You can find that in the Talmud. So when it comes to the 10 Commandments, you have to understand how others absolve themselves religiously and otherwise because they're not actually the person administering the sin or the death. So if you can pay someone else to do it, then you are absolved from judgment. The person who administers the sickness, the person who administers the death, the sin falls on them. And they know it. But that's all I can say right now on this side. I'm going to open it up and we're going to talk about the curses and all that and say it has to be a tough thing. And you know what? I can see where it can affect anyone in the healthcare field, where day and night, just imagine your full life every day for money is to be amongst sicknesses. Those that are hurt, those that are in pain. And every day, you're filing paperwork on another person who passed over. Someone who you actually got to know personally. And joined some type of connection or bond with. And you have to deal with this over and over and over again. Eventually, you become desensitized to it. And that's when they got you. When it's just, when now you can put it off by saying, you know what? This is just my job. I just work here. Man. And when you have a system set up like that, where you can voluntarily get people to volunteer to their own demise and destruction voluntarily, you don't need to engage them with an army. You just have to convince them to trust. That's all I can say on this side. I'll see you on the other side, brothers and sisters. Patreon.com/AGathering144. Let's have a conversation. We can talk about this. If you have any other questions or whatever the case is, I'll be more than happy to talk to you about that. We're going to open up Zoom because I don't know if if Blog Talk is working today. So I'm going to open up Zoom. We can have a face-to-face 1 hour Q&A. Let's talk. Let's go into it. The curses on nurses. Is the plan in place like we've read in Scripture? And if so, what are our people going to do about that? Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Have a great evening. Protect yourselves at all costs. We're the children of Israel, and we're back. See you over on Patreon.
The East is where we're from. The 12 tribes of Israel. In 721 BC, the Assyrian king, he took us down, we fell. With the great escape we went through the Euphrates. The Lord held the water still. To a land where no mankind dwelt, we went. the 12 tribes of Israel. That's who we be.
Manasseh, the Cubans, Ephraim from Puerto Rico, Naphtali from the Isles of Hawaii.
The Lord is calling back Israel.
Zebulon from Panama, Gad, the North American Indians, Simeon, the Dominicans.
AHAYAH's gathering